A secret buried deep within the shadows of a family's life. A daughter, a stepfather, and a discovery so shocking it would ignite a deadly chain of events. What if someone you loved was hiding something far more sinister than you could imagine? This is the true story of Jade Janks, a woman who allegedly took matters into her own hands when she found out her stepfather had hundreds of her intimate photos. Photos she never consented to share. What would drive a woman to kill the man who raised her? Was it revenge? Was it justice? Or was it something much darker? Stay with us as we uncover the twisted layers of this chilling murder case, and the shocking twist that led to Jade's conviction for first-degree murder in 2023. The darkness behind the glass. Jade Janks and the man she once called Dad. From the outside, it seemed like a California success story. Jade Janks was a bright, creative interior designer with a warm smile and a talent for transforming spaces into homes. Her stepfather, Tom Merriman, was a respected butterfly conservationist, known for his environmental work and calm demeanor. Together, they looked like the kind of blended family that made it through life's storms and found peace on the other side. But what happens when the trust that holds a family together is quietly, cruelly shattered? What happens when the person you trust the most becomes the person you fear the most? This is not just a story of murder. It's a story of betrayal, of deep psychological wounds, and of the invisible cracks that can run through even the most picture-perfect lives. Father figure or something else. Jade Janks first met Tom Merriman when she was just a child. Her mother married him when Jade was still young, and for years he was simply Dad. He helped raise her, guided her, supported her. All the things a stepfather should do. As far as the world could see, they shared a close, affectionate bond. But as Jade grew older, the dynamic between them shifted. The lines blurred. Something unspoken passed between them, something Jade wouldn't put into words until much later. Behind closed doors, the warmth of their relationship began to cool. Small, unsettling incidents added up, slowly tightening into something sinister. But no one noticed. No one ever does. Because predators like Tom don't always wear the face of a monster. Sometimes they wear the face of a family man. The violation. In December 2020, Tom Merriman was in hospice care, weak and heavily medicated. Jade had taken on the responsibility of managing his care. She moved in and out of his home, organizing medications, making arrangements, doing what any devoted daughter might do in such a heartbreaking situation. But one day, as Jade was cleaning through his things, she opened his computer. What she found would forever alter the trajectory of her life. There, hidden among folders and files, was a collection of images. Hundreds of them. Nude photographs of her. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The air was sucked from the room. Some of the photos were selfies she had taken years earlier and deleted, assuming they were gone forever. Others were taken without her knowledge. Images from behind doors, reflections in mirrors, stolen glances frozen in time. But how? How did he get these? Why would he keep them? The questions swirled like a storm inside her. Her stepfather, the man who had raised her, called her sweetheart, given her birthday cards and family hugs, had violated her in the most invasive, most personal way imaginable. The breaking point. People imagine trauma as a loud event. Screaming, breaking, sobbing. But sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's just a woman standing in a room, staring at a glowing screen, realizing everything she believed about someone was a lie. Jade didn't scream. She didn't run. She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Instead, she shut the laptop. And then she began to plan. The face of a monster can be familiar. As friends and family continued to care for Tom in his final days, none of them suspected what Jade knew. They didn't see the quiet fury building inside her. A fury rooted not just in the images she found, but in years of discomfort, boundary violations, and the ever-present sense that something was off. It wasn't just about the photos. It was about everything they represented. The lies, the manipulation, the betrayal of trust that cuts deeper than any knife. Tom Merriman was dying. But Jade believed he didn't deserve to die peacefully. The thin line between victim and perpetrator. This story doesn't begin with a murder. It begins with a young woman discovering that the person she trusted most had been watching her for years, studying her, recording her, stealing pieces of her identity in the dark. But what happens next? What does someone do with that kind of pain? Does it fester? Does it destroy them? Or does it push them to destroy someone else? Coming up next. What happened in the days after Jade discovered the photos? What drove her from quiet shock to a fatal decision? And was this really about revenge or something deeper, something much harder to define? One thing is certain. The line between justice and vengeance had already begun to blur. How far would you go if someone violated the very core of your privacy? Would you tell the world? Or would you take matters into your own hands? The moment everything shattered, Jade Janks and the files that shouldn't exist, started with an act of care. Jade Janks had come by her stepfather's home to tidy up, bring medication, and maybe sit with him for a few minutes, like she had so many times before. Tom Merriman, once a strong, respected figure in the San Diego community, now lay weakened by illness, fading under the quiet hum of hospice care. She had always been the dutiful daughter, even when their relationship turned strange, even when she began to feel the weight of invisible boundaries being crossed. Still she showed up. That day, as sunlight slipped lazily through the blinds, Jade sat at his desk, checking emails on his computer to help with medical bills. She wasn't snooping. She wasn't even suspicious. But then, a folder caught her eye. Buried beneath layers of innocuous file names, documents, receipts, medical records, was one labeled simply, Memories. First it seemed harmless enough. Maybe old family photos, childhood pictures, a slideshow of better times. She double-clicked, and her world stopped. A digital horror. Hundreds of images. But not the kind you'd find in a family album. Not the kind she had ever intended to share. Some were old nudes she'd sent to boyfriends, long deleted and forgotten, or so she thought. Others were far worse. Photos taken without her knowledge. Angles that didn't make sense. The reflection of her body in a mirror she never posed in front of. The unmistakable frame of a hidden camera, catching her in moments of pure vulnerability. Dressing, showering, sleeping. He had been watching her, studying her, collecting her. How long had he been doing this? Jade stared at the screen, her pulse roaring in her ears. The walls of the room seemed to close in, the air thick with something poisonous. How long had these images been there? How long had he violated her in silence, behind that fatherly smile? She scrolled, her hand trembling. Image after image. Organized, labeled, sorted by date. Like a collector's archive. Like trophies. She felt the nausea rise in her throat. Her body betrayed her with shaking hands and shallow breaths. There were no screams. Only a stillness, cold and paralyzing. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a desecration. The rage beneath the surface. Anger is a strange thing. Doesn't always come loud or fast. Sometimes it trickles in, thick and poisonous, coiling around the mind like smoke. And as Jade sat alone in that room, staring into the glowing screen that reflected back pieces of her stolen self, something shifted inside her. This wasn't just a breach of privacy. It was personal, violent, a theft of her body, her identity, her trust. Her stepfather, the man who tucked her in at night, who walked her through high school heartbreaks and career changes, had turned her into a collection. He had objectified her with clinical precision, under the guise of fatherhood. What kind of man does that? What kind of father stores images like these of his own daughter, stepdaughter or not? The silence that screams. She didn't confront him. Not that day. She closed the folder, logged out, and shut the laptop with a careful calm that didn't match the storm inside her. She could hear the soft ticking of a nearby clock. The rustle of curtains. Tom was just down the hall, frail, drugged, fading. And yet, in that moment, he held more power over her than ever before. That's the thing about emotional abuse. It doesn't always need words. The weight of those images, of that violation, told her everything she needed to know. He had never truly seen her as his daughter. He had seen her as something else. And that revelation hurt more than any scream ever could. A line crossed, a mind unraveled. What does a person do with that kind of discovery? Who do they become in the days that follow? For Jade, the answer wasn't clear. But something broke in her that afternoon. A fracture deep in the psyche. The image of herself she'd always clung to, strong, rational, composed, was slipping through her fingers. She told no one. Not yet. Because how do you explain this kind of betrayal? How do you tell people the man everyone respected was a monster who hid in plain sight? Don't. You think. You spiral. You plan. Coming up next. In the days that followed, Jade Janks would carry the weight of this secret like a ticking bomb. Her every move, her expressions, her gestures, masked a fury that no one saw coming. But something inside her had changed. She wasn't just a daughter anymore. She was something else now. And the man she once called Dad was no longer going to get away with what he'd done. Candle, when justice feels impossible, what do you do with the pain? Do you tell the world? Or do you let it swallow you whole? And take someone else with you? The descent, Jade Janks, the betrayal, and a plan set in motion. The images hadn't just broken something inside Jade Janks. They had rewritten her very sense of self. The betrayal she unearthed wasn't just a violation of privacy. It was a violation of her past, her innocence, her reality. And once you see a monster behind a familiar face, you can't unsee it. What followed wasn't a single decision. It was a slow unraveling, a chain reaction set off by rage, grief, and something darker. Whether it was revenge, justice, or desperation, Jade crossed a line that day. And there was no going back. Tom Merriman was coming home. It was New Year's Eve 2020. Tom Merriman was scheduled to be discharged from a rehabilitation center. Frail, sedated, and dependent on others, he was being brought back to the Solana Beach home he shared with Jade. But he wasn't returning to a daughter waiting with open arms. Jade had spent the days since discovering the images in a haze of calculation. She was quiet but not passive, heartbroken but not frozen. Her thoughts had turned from pain to control. Cocktail. According to prosecutors, Jade began drugging Tom as soon as he arrived home. He was already on a regimen of painkillers and sleeping medication, but she allegedly supplemented his dosages, Ambien, various opiates, until he was barely conscious. Toxic cocktail. A silent weapon. This wasn't a crime of passion in the traditional sense. There was no screaming, no physical altercation. Just a methodical, chilling descent into murder that played out over hours, maybe even days. At one point, according to testimony, she texted a friend, "I just dosed the hell out of him." Was it a confession, cry for help, or a taunt? The ambiguity of that message would haunt the courtroom later. But in the moment it painted a terrifying picture. Jade wasn't just acting, she was documenting her steps. A fixer on standby. Then came the text that changed everything. "He's waking up. I can't carry him alone. I need help." Jade allegedly sent this message to a man she'd known for years, someone with a checkered past, someone she believed might help dispose of a body. A so-called fixer. Prosecutors argued this showed premeditation. That Jade wasn't panicked or unsure. She had anticipated this moment. She had built it into her plan. But what was going through her mind? Was this truly a calculated murder? Or was she spiraling, trapped in a situation too big, too dark to climb out of? The body behind the trash. On January 1, 2021, Tom Merriman was reported missing. His bed was empty. His phone had gone silent. His last contact was with Jade. Police would later find his body buried under a pile of boxes and trash in the garage. Covered, hidden, discarded like a secret. He had been wrapped in a blanket and crushed beneath household junk. His body bore no obvious signs of trauma. It wasn't a violent scene. It was a quiet one. Eerily quiet. An autopsy would reveal lethal levels of prescription medications in his system. Guilt or something else? During questioning, Jade denied killing her stepfather. She claimed she had cared for him lovingly, and that his death must have been the result of accidental overdose, possibly self-administered. But her digital trail told a different story. Text messages, Google searches, timeline inconsistencies. She hadn't just dosed him. She had messaged friends about it. She had made statements that walked the razor's edge between confession and justification. And she never called 911. Never told a friend. Never said, "I'm scared." She had a secret, and she protected it, until it became too heavy to hide. Trapped in her own plan. Still the question remains. Was Jade Janks a cold-blooded killer, or a woman driven to the brink by years of quiet emotional manipulation and one final, devastating betrayal? Some believe Jade was psychologically cornered. That discovering the photos was just the final trauma in a long line of violations. Perhaps she saw no legal way out. No court would prosecute a dying man. No family would believe her over the patriarch. Perhaps, in her mind, justice had to be done with her own hands. Others argue it was vengeance, pure and simple. That she waited until Tom was weak. That she planned his death, not as self-defense, but as punishment. But what if both things were true? What if Jade Janks was both victim and perpetrator? The emotional weight of a hidden life. We don't talk enough about what it means to be betrayed by someone we trust. What it does to the psyche. How it poisons memory. Tom Merriman wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a one-time offender or anonymous abuser. He was the man who'd walked her down a school hallway, sat at Thanksgiving dinner, told her he loved her. And behind all that, he had been watching her, objectifying her. It wasn't just the betrayal of a daughter. It was the slow erasure of a woman's agency, until the only way she saw to take it back was through destruction. Collecting her. A crime or a collapse. What do you call it when a woman poisons her abuser? What do you call it when she never reported him but buried him instead? Is it justice? Or is it murder? Jade's actions didn't unfold in a moment of panic. They were deliberate, traced, unfolded step by step. But every action she took dripped with emotional weight. Not the cold calculus of a killer, but the spiraling confusion of someone whose world had been violated at its core. Coming up next, Jade Janks would soon find herself at the center of a high-profile trial. The public would take sides, some calling her a monster, others a misunderstood victim of psychological abuse. But what would the courtroom uncover? What secrets would finally come to light? And would anyone, even Jade herself, truly understand why she did what she did? When trust is broken beyond repair, how far will someone go to reclaim control? Was Jade seeking justice? Or simply trying to erase her pain the only way she knew how? Justice or judgment? The trial of Jade Janks. When Tom Merriman was first reported missing on January 1, 2021, the story barely made a ripple in the community. A 64-year-old man in hospice care. Maybe he wandered off, maybe it was a tragic accident. But it wasn't long before police began to suspect something much darker.